Welcome from London, UK. It's time for day number 2 of Gfinity Spring Masters Cup number 2. I'm Frodan. I'm once again joined the analysis corner bright and early on a Sunday morning with Lothar and Caldi. Yesterday we had 14 players be whittled down to 8, and today we're going to find out who is going to call himself Spring 2 champion, who is getting $5,000 and 50 World Championship points.
And is it Firebat again?
And is it Firebat again? Will life coach rope? Can Reynad win his first offline tournament? All this and more. The mysteries are unending. It'd be the first time that anyone actually won an offline tournament series multiple times if Firebat wins today.
Yeah,
no one's ever been able to win DreamHack twice or IEM twice, etc.
It was very close, though.
Yes, Tice came very close.
You mean Gara?
Or Gara. I mean, Tice also got into the finals twice.
Right.
Yeah, he won one and got into the finals. That was the one that stuck out to me because he won Bucharest. It was very close. It was back-to-back, so that was really impressive. Caldi, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, yeah. Up early, yeah. Just ready to go.
Yeah, you are. Looks like you're just still getting transitioned into it. Don't worry, man. We have plenty of Hearthstone action. Let's talk a little bit about yesterday, shall we? What's something that stuck out to you guys as the story?
A lot of upsets to begin with. I'd say a lot of players that weren't expected to go through went through, and so it's been really exciting. A lot of live coach games, so got a lot of control.
That's right.
A lot of live coach games, so that was off schedule, I think.
Yeah, we had some long games. We had some short games too. RDU versus Faramir was one of the highlights for me, being able to see the highs and lows. Faramir has been eliminated. We'll talk a little bit actually about that, but before we go into it too much, let's recap and see an overview of what this tournament is about for anybody who didn't get a chance to tune in yet. We had 14 players come in from all over the world. 2 of them unfortunately couldn't come, so we had 2 3-man groups, but that still didn't stop us from group play. We played them in double elimination format that we normally accustomed to see with best of 5 conquest. Today, we're going to see the single elimination brackets in the top 8. It's going to be best of 5 all the way through. Nothing's going to change. Just the fact that they only have 1 life left in the tournament. Yeah,
that's true. Single elimination is brutal. Is a brutal format, but that's how it works. And every single game counts like hell. It's really important to win every single game. And if you just lose the match, you're out. So a really big pressure on every single of the player.
That's right. Somebody in the tournament is going to go 5-1 or 5-0. Like it's just going to happen here at the end of the day. So I'm looking forward to see who's going to be. Of course, $5,000 for first, $2,500 for second, and $1,250 for third and fourth place. Looking at Group A specifically, we had Firebat advance in the first match of the day over Zozas, and then Zozas had a second life, but unfortunately got eliminated by Kroba, which means that the runner-up from last event is no longer in here.
Worth noting is the fact that this group was a 3-man group, because one of the players that was assigned in this group didn't attend the tournament at all. So Firebat was awarded default win at the start of the tournament. So kind of lucky for him. He didn't expose his deck list with the first match, and yeah.
Krober actually got a free win also in the losers match, and we had a repeat of the finals last time. But now up in Group B, we had Faramir defeat Airbrushed, and then he went to Game 5 against RDU, a nail-bitingly close game that came down to a knife juggler, which went RDU's way, and that really ended up throwing Faramir off, who lost in the final match against Airbrushed. So RDU going through in first place and Airbrushed going through in second place.
Yeah, really close series all throughout the groups, in fact. Although I heard that the last one, Faramir was still off his game. He was thrown off so much that he missed lethal, apparently, in that final series.
That bites you back.
That's devastating, to say the least. Well, hopefully he can bounce back in a future tournament. We're going to move on to Group C. Reynad took the first place in this group, surprisingly. We pegged Life Coach as the person to... No, I mean, even most people would agree. Life Coach was the favorite to take first place in the group.
But Reynad has a better lineup against Life Coach.
Right, that's exactly what I think can be generalized to. And then Reynad ended up taking that series and Life Coach going into second place.
True.
I think Life Coach has been the favorite for every tournament we've been in the last few months now. But so we see Powder won on Friday against LB Dutch Boy, and then a surprise knockout of Orange by LB Dutch Boy in the final match after. So we have Powder going through in first and LB Dutch Boy going through in second. We're going to see them today up in the round of 8.
That's right, and well, I guess Orange is out of the tournament. One of the many interesting storylines is we have Orange, Faramir, Zozas eliminated. Those are three players that I would have not been surprised to see in the top 8. But, you know, on the opposite end, it's cool to see IB Dutch Boy, or LB Dutch Boy, excuse me. He was telling me that he really wanted to prove himself. He didn't get a chance to come to the last event because Gfinity moved their dates to accommodate Katowice. And as a result, he got invited to this event as like an honorary, like, well, you didn't get to play last time because we changed it last secondly, so we'll make it up to you. And he said, you know, I met him on ladder and I was talking to him a little bit. He's like, man, I really want to like do well at this event. I practiced so hard and I trained a lot. So
well, he advanced.
See him go through, yeah.
A really young guy as well, only 15 and here with his dad.
15?
Yeah.
Wow.
He doesn't look 15.
Is he like eligible to even win money like from competition at that point? I know in the United States, I don't think you're even allowed to compete if you're 15 years old.
He must be, but the Dutch are so tall, I guess, so it's maybe...
That's right. They're very open-minded there in the Netherlands. I got to spend a few days there with Thijs. So, yeah, that wraps up the recap. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen today here in the round of 8. We have 4 matches. We're going to start off, I believe, with Firebat versus Airbrushed, a first versus second seed.
Yep.
And then we have Reynad versus LB Dutch Boy. Then we have RDU versus Kroba in the third match. Lastly, Powder versus Life Coach, which is the match I'm looking forward to as well, just because I think those two players have the most, I guess, collective name power from tournaments that you normally see. Like if you told me that was the finals of the Kingwin Easter edition charity event, then I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people like didn't realize that Powder actually went through as a qualifier. You know, most people assumed that he was just invited because he's such a big name, but he actually went through the qualifier the hard way here. So a lot of respect for that.
Sounds good.
So we have 4 qualified players and 4 invite players, right?
Right. Although I guess it's hard to put Powder in that qualified player list mentally because you've been accustomed for the past few months seeing him as one of the invited players. So you know it doesn't register immediately, but it is 4-4 at the moment. Although I guess LB Dutch Boy is technically an invite too.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
so I mean, he's an invite because he didn't qualify. We went through the qualifiers last time. It's very gray area. But the point is, there's few players you don't know about, and there's a few players you do know about. And there's some players that you might be rooting for, or you might be surprised by if they're able to pull out some good moves.
True. Yeah. So we'll be looking into the first match, right? Maybe we should talk about the classes.
Yeah, we can go ahead and transition straight into that. I wanted to talk more about hype other matches, but we can go straight into that too. So Firebat versus Airbrushed, that's our first match of the day.
Yep.
What are they bringing here? Do they change anything? Because I know in the round of 8, you're allowed to change decks to accommodate Wing 3.
But they had to submit the deck list before the whole event. Mm-hmm. So I don't think anyone did that.
For the top 8?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
do you have any information about that?
I think it was Crobat. He was playing a really strange warrior yesterday with Iron Juggernaut and a lot of strange stuff. I think he actually took that out, so that was maybe more of a... Because he was here to have fun, so maybe he was actually mixing things up. But we have now for Firebat, he had Mage, Rogue and Warlock, and we saw yesterday he was playing Sue, and I believe it was Freeze Mage against Airburst with Mage, Hunter, Warrior. So just initially looking at the lineup, I would give a slight edge to Airbrushed, but it's going to be really close, I think.
Yeah, well, the warrior might be a problem for...
The Freeze Mage, yeah. I mean, we saw Firebat play against Freshheart in the KPL, you know, ran the Freeze Mage into a warrior, immediately surrendered, and then it was thrown off the whole match, you know. As you do get quite tilted with that matchup, so that might happen again. Even I mean, we also see a Hunter. Hunter would, you know, generally be strong against Freeze Mage, so it could go that way. But
strong? I wouldn't say strong against Freeze Mage.
Yeah, it depends on the ice barriers, definitely. Yeah, and how all in it. I mean, Freeze Mage owns the mid Hunter, I suppose. You know, but
maybe someone will start using flares again. In the Hunter.
Maybe. I mean, it could be as simple as playing Lotheb and Face Hunter so you can deny. Maybe. I mean, I don't know if that's...
Isn't Reynad running
I didn't know
Lotheb?
if Reynad wanted to do that specifically, but that gives it, you know, it's still a problematic thing where it's really hard for you to deal with that pressure constantly.
Oh, that's
I don't know if anyone would go as far as to run Flare. That feels like a Gara type innovation. Most likely you would see just better cards against Freeze Mage to, you know, out-tempo them or something. So
yeah, that might be true.
But I think looking at this, you know, the Hunter against Zoo. It's a really favorite matchup for the Hunter if it's a face Hunter. It's decent against the Rogue, decent against the Mage. Again, with the Warrior, you know, almost a free win against the Freeze Mage, you know. Strong matchup against the Rogue. But the Warrior against Zoo is very interesting, actually. Like, before with the Undertaker, you had more options, so it was even slightly favored for the Warrior. But now with the Gangbot, it's harder to remove. So I would actually swing this in the favor of the Warlock now, as they've also been adding on Void Callers and more late game stuff to deal with that Warrior.
This matchup depends both on the exact deck choice, card choices when it comes to Warlock and Warrior. They both can tweak each other against the exact matchup. So it depends on that. Definitely, like the Warrior edition, maybe a Bomb Lobber. We have seen that in Warriors for a long time. Yeah, yep. And then Warlock can play like a pure Zoo deck without the Void Colors, without Mal'Ganis, or can go into the Void Color route, which is great against Warrior because Brawl is basically useless then.
Right, it's really difficult because, you know, there's eggs too, so it's just so many ways that you're resilient against AoE damage on the board for clear and removal. That's going to be pretty hard on both sides. I'm looking forward to it. Firebat, of course, comes in here as the reigning champion. He felt pretty good. He said he's adjusted, finally got a lot of sleep. Maybe that's bad news for Airbrushed, but, you know, at the same time, this is a perfect opportunity to start carving your name into the scene. Airbrushed is a player that I've seen a lot throughout this, you know, the well-known ladder rankings and some of those online qualifiers, but I have yet to see him make a first breakout performance, and I can't think of a better person right now than Firebat to take down.
This is his chance. Yep. This is his 5 minutes to break his...
Oh, it's going to be a lot longer than 5 minutes.
Well, yeah. Especially if he will...
About 6 or 7 minutes.
What if he will
there's
challenge Life Coach at some point?
Well, then it's like 15 to 20 hours.
Makes sense.
Not minutes. So that wraps up our pregame analysis. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to get over to Nimsh and Admirable, who are waiting at the casting desk to bring you guys the first match of day number 2.
Thank you so much, guys. Oh man, I'm so excited for those matches. Firebat and Airbrushed. It's like, do you think like Firebat is Batman and then Airbrushed will be a super villain? Like, Airbrushed sounds a bit like a super villain.
Well, I can see it that way, but, you know, after meeting the guy, he's just so nice and he's so happy and just, you know, he's loving to be here and just likes to have fun. And, you know, competition is something he wants to be a part of, though. And today is, I mean, it's definitely on his slate, as we said, you know, $10,000 being given out today, as well as the 50 World Championship points to first place. That is no joke. That is equivalent to an entire season finishing at #1 on ladder. So that's important to a lot of these guys. But of course, again, you know, $5,000 to first place, that is not a small amount of cash for playing Hearthstone here. So a lot of money on the line and a lot of pressure as well, with Airbrushed being a relatively unknown coming up against the world champion, of course. Firebat.
You said world champion many times about our world champion, and we know that he is the world champion. Can you tell us more about the person behind the world champion thing?
Well, Firebat's, you know, he's kind of... right after the World Championships and GVG first came out, he was kind of, you know, having a little bit of struggle on ladder and, you know, kind of having to readjust because he was so used to playing very aggressive strategies and going into it. But when everything started to settle, that's when he really started to find his groove. The strategies that were, you know, kind of set in stone and what they wanted to do and the curve they wanted to play against. And from there, it's a matter of him figuring out where all the matchups line up. And so once he's done that, that's when you started seeing him win again. And, of course, at this last Gfinity that he won, that was exactly what he did. He had a chart that had every single class lined up and what he expected to face against, and so the win rates that he had across there, and he just literally chose the top 3 decks that had the most win rate on his chart, and that's how he won it. I'm going to guess he did the exact same thing here, but, I mean, it's been showing a lot of success for him.
I've known James before he became the world champion, and as you said, like, this guy loves spreadsheets. Like, he was one of the biggest researchers in Hearthstone because Hearthstone really depends on information, and he's getting all the information, and then he plays those decks. Like, in the beginning, he was mostly concentrating on aggro decks, but then right now you see him playing Freeze Mage, Rogue, like actually every archetype. So I think, like, I'm really happy that he is a world champion because he is an not maybe ideal player, but he is a player that represents the power of research and good gameplay.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And, you know, Airbrushed is, I think he's really kind of along with him, though. You know, Caldi's really talked up Airbrushed a lot coming into this tournament, as well as kind of asking the other players around in the groups exactly what they thought. And Airbrushed seemed to be kind of on everyone's radar as this is a guy you really need to look out for because while we haven't seen a ton of him, he is definitely very good. And as Frodin said, this is a great spot to start etching a name for himself in Hearthstone. I mean, this is the biggest target out there right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Looking at the decks for Firebat and Airbrushed, so Firebat is starting with his Freeze Mage, Rogue, and Zoo. Airbrushed has Mage, Hunter, Warrior. what do you think they will start in Conquest? Like, does it matter, or do you just do you have a strategy?
There's definitely, I think, something to be said for picking the right matchups to start, and then also getting the right matchup in the second match. And if you're able to win those games, it leverages you a lot in that third game. You know, you only have to get one win. You have to play against 3 different decks. You're at a big advantage if you pick up the first 2. So because of that, I think there's a lot more to it than just kind of picking a random deck. It's really thinking about what your opponent's likely to lead against based on your lineup and then going from there. Now, the counter to that strategy is just picking a random deck first and not thinking much about that and having it go from there. But if you're picking a deck at random, then your opponent, you know, just maybe doing the numbers on the math might end up being negative for you if you're just picking at random. So I think there is a lot of strategy coming into picking the first deck, but exactly how you want to do it, I mean, that's another question here. It's difficult.
What does he want to avoid, like, as long as the matchups go?
Well, it looks to me like Firebat's going to want to avoid his Rogue and his Mage going into Warrior. That's like the biggest target, I think, that's on those decks' foreheads is the Warrior. To me, it looks like Warlock is going to have a good time versus Warrior, of course. Kelly mentioned that. But he said that Warlock struggles versus Face Hunter, or typically, you know, Zoo Warlocks is what he specified. And I frankly have to disagree. I think if that deck doesn't find a very strong draw with Explosive Traps early on, either Mad Scientist or Explosive Trap, that they typically struggle to end the game, because something they used to have, I mean, this is way back when, you'd play Starving Buzzard and you'd play Unleash the Hounds, which was 2 mana at the time, and then you had Timberwolves in there. And the Timberwolves were good because you could cycle them with Starving Buzzards, and then also having the 3 mana combo to deal 2 damage to each minion that your opponent controlled, that was a big swing in the game. You don't have that anymore. You have to use Knife Juggler with Unleash the Hounds, and that not only creates an element of randomness within the Knife Jugglers being able to miss, but Knife Juggler is a card that you will often have to play early to try to get some board presence. You can't just hold it in your hand like you did with Starving Buzzard, because Starving Buzzard had to be he had to wait on it to draw cards with it.
That's a fair point, but the game is ready, and the players are starting now. Airbrushed versus Firebat, Warrior versus the Zoo deck.
Yeah, I think this is, honestly, I think, the exact match that Airbrushed really wanted to dodge. You know, Zoo can put a lot of pressure on Warrior, but there's a couple cards in here that look like they're already teched for each side of it. Ironbeak Owl, of course, can be very good against something like Unstable Ghoul, or maybe even something as simple as Armorsmith or Sludge Belcher. But Unstable Ghoul, of course, that is a very strong card versus what Zoo is trying to do.
Oh, that's actually a surprising card. We haven't seen it in a while. But on the other hand, for Firebat, I don't like this hand for Zoo. Like, you want to start with 1-drop, you want to have a good 2-drop. And here with Juggler might actually get countered.
Well, this is one of the problems with playing a deck like this, is that sometimes you're going to run into inconsistency. That's a
oh, a Fire War Axe.
Wow. I mean, the Wind Axe is always in a Warrior's hand. It doesn't matter what you do. They could cut both Fiery War Axes from their deck and then switch over to Priest, and they would still draw Fiery War Axe.
I fear the times when Warriors get dual wield and they will be able to hand, you know, Fiery War Axe in one hand and Death Spite in the other. in the old times of WoW.
Isn't that just Wind Fury?
Wind Fury?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a bit.
Or do you just combine the power of them both and then they each use a charge? Is that what you're thinking of with dual wield? How do you make a card? You have to make a minion that gives you dual wield or something.
Yeah, like
or like a weapon that says, well, you control this weapon, you have dual wield. That's actually pretty interesting.
Weapon Master something teaches you dual wield, and then you can equip 2 weapons, but then the Weapon Master is destroyed and you have to drop one of the weapons to the ground and it becomes a minion.
Well, there's a Sea Giant. And that's an interesting way. Implosion, he needs to roll way high on this one.
And he gets it. That's the World Champion for you.
Well, 3 is going to be your average, but I'm guessing he really wanted 4, especially kind of with the way that this Armorsmith is going to continue to chew through things. Second Armorsmith also picked up.
Yeah, and then Unstable Ghoul. Well, this board looks pretty good for Airbrushed.
Yeah, he's had pretty much all the early tools he needs to really disrupt this. And again, Firebat's draw kind of struggling in this first one, in this this opening here. No 1-drop, of course. Pretty weak. Set on turn 2 and turn 3, and then Implosions is turn 4, but he's already facing down pressure.
The thing is that Firebat, if the minions are not getting cleared, Firebat will be able to play Sea Giant this turn. But then there is the Execute. Like right now, Airbrushed, even though he doesn't have that many cards in hand, he has all the tools to counter whatever is being played.
That Beast Sergeant is actually a pretty darn good draw. That positioning is interesting. Well, I'm actually curious. Okay, so this is a really interesting turn to me because he chose to go with the Sea Giant this turn, and I can see why. But something that I was looking at was playing a Beast Sergeant next to one of your imps, buffing up one imp to 3/1, and then playing Defender of Argus to make a 3/2 and a 2/2. And then both of those live through the Unstable Ghoul trigger, and your opponent is left with a 1/3 Armorsmith versus your 2 and 3 power minions and then the 2/3 also. That's a line I think that was taken really quickly by Firebat. And I think the Sea Giant was probably better because if your opponent doesn't have like Executor Shield Slam, it's gonna crash through for a lot, but I would have liked to see him consider that a lot more.
Oh, definitely. I think that's a play for our analysts to talk about.
Look at this. He's just going to have to go all in, too. Oh, that's so much damage to lose with the Defender of Argus and a Power Overwhelming.
But on the other hand, is there a good way to deal with this Doomguard now? There is a Sludge Belcher.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have 28 life, so waiting is, is definitely something you can afford to do right now.
Can you play Sylvanas? Just
Absolutely.
Zoo is out of cards, so.
Yeah, I think you have plenty of time, and you're not under a ton of pressure. He's never gonna. It's impossible for him to lethal you next turn. Looks good to me.
Well, Firebat out of cards, so even though he has all those spreadsheets and statistics with Power Overwhelming, well, not doing much here.
Yeah, this is a really poor set of draws.
At least he's limited to like a limited number of decisions now, just playing the cards that he draws into. That's why people say that Zoo is actually not requiring much skill.
Right, so
Do you agree with that?
No, I disagree. I think Zoo is a very skill-intensive deck. We've got a little bug here on our client, so we're going to get up an alternate side of this for you as quickly as we can. Get this fixed. And you know, this is going to happen sometimes. Sometimes you just get little bugs here. So taking a look here, obviously didn't Power Overwhelming. Used Doomguard to take out this Armor Smith. I don't really know how much he can actually invest into the late game here. This is one of those games where I think it's kind of, you know, his efforts are futile and it's a matter of going through the motions. I mean, what combinations of cards is he going to draw here that actually picks us up? Like, I feel like he needs Doomguard, like literally right here, and then some way to fight against this Sylvanas, which is going to steal a Doomguard. Just everything looks wrong.
Yeah, like Airbrushed has everything he needs with Dr. Boom. And I like the play. Again, it was green, he played it. He was considering something like attacking into the Doomguard with Sylvanas and having a weapon, but Dr. Boom on turn 7, and we have a winner. So Airbrush taking game number 1 versus Firebat. His Warrior is out. Is it good news for Firebat? I mean, he lost the game, but now Warrior's out, so no worries there.
Well, I don't think losing a game is ever good news. But if you want to look at the, you know, cup half full sort of thing, yeah, I think it's really not the worst thing in the world for him. Rogue and Mage are going to kind of go by a little bit unscathed, and I think Warlock is still going to have an okay matchup versus Hunter, and I think it's going to have an okay matchup versus Mage as well.
All right, so Airbrushed has to win with Hunter and Mage now. So the match is not over yet. Airbrushed can probably roll a die. Like, I actually seen players rolling a die when they were choosing their decks. And that was one of the first things that Strifecro told me. Like, Conquest, oh yeah, I need this randomizer to actually randomize the decks for me every game.
Well, I mean, I can see the benefit of that, of course, because it allows you, you're not really exploitable by your opponent at that point. But if you're playing against someone who's just going to play the numbers every single time, rolling a dice like is a liability to you, because then your opponent can just pick whatever deck is going to have the two slightly favored matchups versus you, and so they get the first win. You know, more often than not, because you're rolling a dice to choose at random.
But how deep can you go with the mind games? Because you are never certain what your opponent is going to take. Like, you can't assume.
That's for the mind. That's the whole mind. That's the why we have this wonderful game in these tournaments that the viewers can see exactly how these mind games roll out and who ends up getting an edge in that instance. You know, Hearthstone is, again, it's one of those games where the player who played the best isn't always going to win, but you can usually have like a peer-related review. Like, for instance, we have the analysis desk over there. And we have guys who are kind of looking at plays and figuring out what's going right and what's going wrong. And that's really what Hearthstone's all about. Watching it really that's the test of wits and will.
Oh, I love watching Hearthstone. Can you call the next deck Firebat is going to take? Is he going to continue with the Zoo, or do you like roll a die and take something else?
Well, he's going to be playing against Hunter and Mage, and so I'm guessing he wants to figure out exactly when he needs to queue this Zoo up. I mean, it looks to me like he just doesn't want to play Rogue, is kind of what I'm seeing.
Is he afraid of Valyria in the morning?
I think I think he's just really afraid of playing against Wolf Riders and Arcane Golems. But yeah, I mean, I think Warlock's totally fine here. I think it's going to be between Warlock and Mage, and so, you know, which one he chooses of those two, that's another question. But I can definitely see. I mean, I would tend to think he's going to play Mage here, but Warlock's definitely possible.
I think if Firebat is going to win this match, then he needs to stop the Mage from Airbrushed. Like, it's really hard to 3-0 Face Hunter. So I think Face Hunter is going to steal one more game, and then Airbrushed will be left with his Mage. Do we know what Mage is that? I would assume it's
I believe it's Mech Mage.
Yeah, I believe it's Mech Mage as well. So Firebat will have to 3-0 the Mech Mage with his lineup and then take the series, which might be tough. Like, Mech Mage is one of those decks that can snowball. We've seen different weird draws yesterday, but if you get a normal hand and the deck is really stable and consistent, just Fireball the face and you're done.
A lot of it's going to come down to those draws, too. Hunter versus Freeze Mage, because unless he switched his deck, Firebat's playing Freeze Mage like he was this weekend. A lot of that comes down to ice barriers being able to be drawn at critical times. And so if Mad Scientists end up fetching ice barriers off their death rattles, it's like that matchup is so in favor of Mage all of a sudden. But if it's not able to do that, it really kind of depends on how he's able to kind of stabilize the board here. So if he gets off like a really clear Doomsayer turn, or if he's got like an anti-Keel bot in his list or something like that, that's when you can really see a favorite. But look at this opening hand here from Airbrushed.
Oh man, there is a Leper Nimsh. And double Glyph dual wield. Let's do it.
Even demonstrating the importance of Ice Barrier in this matchup. Firebat's just going to hold on to it.
Oh yeah, it's like 8 points of health.
Yeah, it's not quite as good as a Mad Scientist Death Rattle for it, but I mean, it's such a crucial mechanic against this deck.
But it's still interesting to keep the Ice Barrier instead of like having it in your deck and trying to get Mad Scientist to get it for free.
Well, you got to draw Mad Scientist first.
Yeah.
So what it really feels like to me is that you just have like 2 different ways to get Mad Scientist. Wow.
Whoa.
Actually throws back a Glaive as well.
And he gets double Ice Barrier, but double Juggler. Well, throwing out Glaive means that he is valuing the minions more.
Yeah, I mean,
Coin
this
Juggler
hand is getting really, really stacked here for Airbrushed really quickly.
He has a couple of choices. Like he can go with the Leper Gnome, and
does he really have a couple of choices? I feel like Coin Juggler here is 100%.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he's very confident he's playing against Freeze Mage, so even if he sees a Frostbolt here, he's not going to see it contested by a minion too terribly often. It's going to be like Mad Scientist if he sees it.
Oh, there is a Frostbolt top deck.
That's definitely a good one, but
it's still not bad for Airbrushed.
No, it's not. It really isn't. It's one of the ways that Freeze Mage can actually beat this matchup is kind of just by staving off the damage and having enough burn in the end game. So each point of burn that you pull out of their deck is just one less way for them to actually end up hitting the critical mass and killing you.
Also, Frostbolt is important to stop the weapons in the critical turn.
Yeah.
So just losing this Frostbolt. All right, so another Juggler is going to hit the board and throw some juggles. Next turn, there's a Doomsayer.
Wow. I mean, this is working out so well for him. I actually think there's a chance he Ice Lances this Knife Juggler, but gosh, it's so tough to do.
Yeah, the top deck bots.
The problem with this turn is like if he sees an Arcane Golem or he sees a Wolf Rider, Wolf Rider's a 50% chance for it to kill it, and then Arcane Golem, of course, is going to kill Doomsayer here. So definitely some consideration.
I'm still thinking, like, do I like Wolf Rider? For Firebat, is he thinking about freezing the Knife Juggler? That's spending lots of cards, and he only gets those Ice Barriers, even though they do grant him time. Like, Ice Barrier will heal him for 8.
Knife Juggler's just too important. I think it just has to be dealt with.
All right, so just a bow and 3 damage to face. Turn is the bow is very good for Airbrushed here. Normally your turn would be locked, like just hero power, but with bow you're able to push the damage a bit. Whoa, Acolyte of Pain. He was running out of cards and now he gets Acolyte. And here playing the Asbari because you want to draw at least one. You want to draw 2 cards from Acolyte. You want to play Acolyte, ping it, get a card, then allow Hunter to kill it again.
Well, a bigger story too is just to get the Ice Barriers rolling. Like right now he doesn't have a lot of options, so expending the mana on Ice Barriers is probably the best way to get things done. And later in the turn, if he has Ice Barriers in his hand, it's just going to muck up his draw. So he needs to be investing into Ice Barriers when he has the time to do it.
I really like that we have Freeze Mage in the metagame, because Freeze Mage is something different. Normally you do have only minions attacking into minions, and Freeze Mage, it's like you feel like the mage is really tanking up, like freezing everything and trying to stay in control, drawing cards. It's a very different feel than a normal deck.
Still at 30 on turn 5, but again, just few options. Frostnova is not too terribly exciting.
Alright, he's going to ping his Acolyte of Pain to make it happy and draw a card. Oh, he's actually doing that.
I really like pinging the Leopard here. It's just going to save him so much damage in the long run. You know, if Airbrushed really wants to deal with this Acolyte of Pain, like he's totally fine with seeing an Iron Beak Owl, I think. Because it's just more 2/1s your opponent has. If he's going to Wolf Rider or Eagle
Horn Bow into Acolyte.
Yeah, I mean, anything that goes into the Acolyte, I think Firebat's just totally fine with. It's just more damage he's buying himself.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like being Airbrushed and killing Acolyte, looking at Freeze Mage only having 4 cards in hand, you're not that disappointed yourself.
Well, I think the thing you're disappointed in is the fact that he's at 28 still. Like, how much more can you afford to invest into things like minions? You have to start killing him, and you only have 4 cards left in your hand. I'm very surprised he's actually choosing to attack this Acolyte.
I agree with this. Like, you want to limit the number of cards. You are playing the long game now. So the fact
that's not a good sign for a deck that's dedicated to using 2 damage and 3 damage spells for one shot.
That's tough. Yeah, that's tough, definitely.
I mean, look at this. He's got... Let's just assume he rolls Huffer off of Animal Companion. He's got 12 damage right now, and he's looking at another Ice Barrier.
And he's also running out of cards. Unleash the Hounds will be a dead card.
It's going to be very, very not useful in this match.
Can get a Hound from Alexstrasza. The dragon shows up and you get the dog
Solid.
to bite it.
He really needs a huffer.
Yeah,
off
he
of
needs
this
a
animal
huffer.
companion. I mean, he needs a huffer really bad.
Well, everybody needs a huffer.
If he rolls Amisha. Oh,
And he
there you
gets a
go.
huffer.
Yep, someone ran. You can look at Firebat's face too. He's like, "Yep, sounds about right."
Oh, come on. Firebat got his huffers, all right, like back in the day.
Well, he also got beat by a silverback patriarch off of a web spinner, which is the only card that could beat him. Go ahead and dig.
There's a
And,
Flame Strike, Alex
Oh, wow.
Well, Firebat is accumulating cards.
Yeah, I mean, this Alex Strauss makes him so comfortable right now, especially because Airbrushed is going to be kind of doing consistent damage over the course of this game, and not really any high burst because he's so low on cards at this point, and he hasn't really amassed a board presence. So when Firebat falls down to like 5 or so life, and it looks like that Airbrushed is going to have enough to leverage him out, then he's got Alex Strauss to bring himself back up.
Firebat is frying the pig.
Gosh, Iron Beak Alex is such a bad draw right now.
Yeah, not presenting any damage here. Like, you might even consider playing it right now.
This is really the difference that Ice Barriers make too, by the way. Firebat would be at 2 if it wasn't for these Ice Barriers. So something really key to think about for you Freeze Mage players out there.
Alright, you do want to ping the Wolf, and then you can drop the Torison, getting yourself better place.
This is like a no-brainer.
The Emperor is down.
This game is pretty darn close to locked up.
Yep, Firebat pretty safe. He still has Alexstrasza. If he goes down enough, he can even play it to heal himself. But definitely just playing Alexstrasza next turn, getting your opponent to 15. Do you think he needs that Ice Block to feel a bit safer?
No, I don't think so at all.
There are 4 cards in your opposing hand.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, Firebat's the kind of guy who's going to keep track of where cards are, and he knows that 2 of those have kind of been sitting there for a while. I'm guessing he assumes that there's something like Iron Beak Owl. Kill Command, Iron
can
Leash
be
the Hounds.
Leroy and Unleash the Hounds.
Definitely can be.
A lot of
but,
damage.
That's, if your opponent Leroy and Unleash the Hounds, like right now, you're just like totally okay with that. When you see Iron Beak Owl and your Emperor, I think you're just thrilled.
Is he going to kill the Emperor?
There's no chance that he can afford to kill Emperor.
Yeah,
If he killed the Emperor,
I was scared for a moment.
Might as well just concede the game.
Alright, the Leopard name is getting dropped again.
So Firebat.
Oh, there's an Ice Block.
My God.
I think like I'm calling a card and Firebat draws it.
Well, he's also deep into his deck too. I mean, you got to consider he's drawn cards off of Acolyte Pain. He's got an Arcane Intellect out. He's definitely deep.
Yeah,
definitely getting deep into the deck.
I can definitely agree that Firebat is playing this matchup really well. It seems like he's super comfortable. Like a lot of players, they do struggle with Freeze Mage because they don't know exactly what to do. And Firebat knew this matchup. Like he kept the Ice Barrier. He just stayed alive. He knows when to ping. Like he's prioritizing pinging the minions. Trading here again.
I mean, this is the most. Oh my gosh, and Mad Scientist is such a bad draw right now.
This is really bad.
2 dogs is about the most value I think that you're ever going to get out of this. I mean, like maybe you can get a 3rd one, but that's when Alex Strauss hit the board. And if Alex Strauss hit the board, you're just not going to win the game.
All right, so here you can just Hero Power, play Mad Scientist, and that will be 7 points of health.
I wonder.
Even with Chasm Mystic top, because Firebat is going to play Alexstrasza into the Hunter. And then if you get Chasm Mystic and you win, you still can't win. Like
I don't
it's
think
3 minutes.
Airbrushed. I don't think is the kind of player who's going to play Chasm Mystic. He's played so well and played very strong. The only thing I think is even close to question is killing the Acolyte of Pain, but I think there's a really strong argument for killing the Acolyte of Pain either. So it's probably at the end of the day a matter of preference.
What he can do, like next turn, after Firebat plays Alexstrasza, it's like Unleash the Hounds and then spam well played so that Firebat can concede, maybe.
Yeah, I don't see that one happening. Yeah, this is. I'm actually really curious. I mean, if he's going to ping this, I'm guessing it means he's going to Alex himself. So he's going to attack for 5 here and hope to trigger an explosive trap. He's going to fall down to 5, and then yeah, he's going to Alex Strauss himself here. And this basically puts him out of range of everything. He's got 2 ice blocks. He's got an 8/8 on board. He's got a 5/1. He's got plenty of burn.
That makes a lot of sense.
Airbrushed has 1 card.
Airbrushed is not playing Hunter's Mark, I believe.
Even if he's playing Hunter's Mark, it's just how does he actually?
He got an Iron Beak again, so he's playing 2 Owls.
That's not a big surprise. I think it's pretty standard right now. Sludge Belcher is definitely a card that has a really, really big target on its forehead. And like you said, no Hunter's Mark either. Hunter's Mark used to be so crucial in these Hunter decks, but of course that was when you were drawing cards with Starving Buzzard.
Yeah, Hunter's Mark disappeared. Like some people still play Hunter's Mark in the mid-range Hunter.
Yeah, all my opponents play Hunter's Mark when I played Ramp Druid on ladder.
Iron Beak Owl is just better because you want to silence that minion and you still get the beast on board, which can attack. And Hunter's Mark is more or less that card and you don't draw at all. With Buzzard, you could afford a Hunter's Mark, but without Buzzard. Alright, so there is that 1 dog versus the dragon.
Well, if Airbrushed is still playing this game, I mean, it does kind of feign the fact that he might have something like Flare in the stack. So Firebat is a little bit pressured to end this.
We've seen Gara playing Flare, by the way. And I think it won him a game because there was a Thought Steal into... it was Hunter versus Priest, Thought Steal into Secrets, and Gara had the Flare. But still, this is looking really bad for Airbrushed.
Yeah. I mean, what card could he draw that even come close to
Abyss Surgeon is not that card, and Airbrushed is going to concede. Firebat tying the series 1-1 versus Airbrushed. Freeze Mage is out, and the Warrior is out. So we have 2 control decks out of the picture.
Yeah, both of the major late game decks being gone for both these players now, and suddenly, I mean, this is looking really close to a 50-50. When you take a look at what's left, Firebat's got Rogue and Warlock, and Airbrushed has got Hunter and Mage. So Rogue obviously doesn't want to fight against this Hunter deck, and I think that Warlock kind of doesn't want to face off against this Mage deck. I don't really know exactly how Zoo versus Mage goes.
I think it's all right because you do have the minions to fight early for board presence, and if you win board presence with stuff like Power Overwhelming into Nerubian Egg, then you stop the synergies for mechs, and mechs they just run out of cards. There's a boom that can be dropped, but then if you have the board, you can deal with boom, and you overall win the game. You have the taunts, you have Defender of Argus, you have a lot of power on board.
The issue that I'm kind of seeing with it is that Mech Mage has such strong, powerful minions, and it plays a lot of them really early. Like if they get a good Mech Warper start, that Zoo's really thriving on the fact that it wants to get a powerful minion on the board and then start efficiently trading in a lot of these minion matchups. You know, we've really moved away from Undertaker, so you don't have like a ton of leverage all the time, every single time you've ever drawn an Undertaker. So if Mage can kind of get that advantage, the hero power can make up for the fact that he's going 1-for-1, but then that, you know, at some point that's got to equalize, and Fireball and Frostbolt are 2 of the cards that helps do that. You can't get too low, and then you're fighting against like 4/4s and they have spare parts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It just feels like it's really difficult. I just don't know exactly how it goes.
And that's the Hearthstone I love, because right now we have 2 control decks out of the way, so those players said, hey, we can play control, but the control is out, and now we will have all the aggro matchups. Aggro Rogue, Mech Mage.
You like aggro matchups? Whoa.
Oh, man.
I never would have guessed that.
You like them as well, right?
Well, of course. I just like punch people in the face. That's what I like. And it doesn't really matter to me what it's doing. I mean, I can punch him with a Sea Giant, punch him with a Grommash, anything I punch him with as long as they're getting punched.
The bigger the card, the better. All right, the players are ready. Let's see Rogue from Firebat versus that Face Hunter from Airbrushed, which is a very good matchup for Airbrushed.
Yeah, I don't really think that there was too terribly many ways that Firebat was going to get away from this one. I felt like unless Airbrushed was going to queue up Mage in this match, that Rogue just wasn't going to hit this.
I just got invited by Airbrushed to spectate this game. I like it.
All right, if you only had a 1-card hand, like you only got to keep Blade Flurry, and just
Blade Flurry is the key card. How important is against Hunter though? Because against Druids, all the minion decks, it is really important.
Well, it's really serving a different purpose in this matchup. You're not trying to get like 6 to plus point Blade Flurry. You're just trying to use Blade Flurry to keep the board clean, and well, that's not always going to happen, but it's one of the ways that you keep it clean is with Blade Flurry.
Firebat missing the coin here, which will be important. He won't be able to coin the SA7. Glaive Zuka dealing some damage here.
Yeah, pretty early aggressive start here from Firebat too. You notice he just plays turn 1 South Sea deckhand. And I actually kind of like this because in this matchup, I feel like Rogue has to find a way to race Hunter.
Yeah.
And that's just tough to do. And that's why it struggles so hard, is because it doesn't really have efficient ways to race against it. And you just take a look at the board right here. I mean, you got 4 points of damage out of a South Sea deckhand for 1 mana. That ain't too bad. He's going to have to take a lot of damage to it here. And this
6 damage from the Worgen.
Yeah, I mean, this 3/3 really, really needs to stick to the board this turn.
Oh, double Worgen.
Yeah, there's a chance it doesn't, by the way. I mean, I imagine he's going to coin Mad Scientist after the Knife Juggler, but...
If the Juggler hits, that will be actually a huge turn.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big 50-50, and he's going to think about this one for a while, too.
Oh, man.
Like, does he have an alternative to playing Knife Juggler?
I don't think so. Like, Knife Juggler gives you a chance to actually kill it. Like, if you play Mad Scientist into Worgen, it's not that exciting. And getting that SI7 out of the way, like, even if you hit the face with the knife, that's 1 more damage on face, and he will have to trade with the SA7 into one of those minions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think something he can think about, though, is that, again, Rogue has to find a way to race this matchup, typically. They're not going to win, like, a long, slow-paced game where you're kind of just hero powering back and forth and trading stuff down. So if that's the case, I think there is some merit to hanging on to Knife Juggler, and when your opponent says something like, say, they play Violet Teacher and make some tokens, or they just get multiple minions on the board, having that in combination with
there is a knife. Watch it. He hits.
Wow, that's a big knife right now, too.
That was the RDU knife. All right, there's a second Worgen Infiltrator just
That's
waiting.
a pretty important one, too. So Violet Teacher, this is going to go uncontested, I imagine, for a turn 2. I do not see Airbrushed investing into this Violet Teacher. Maybe the Iron Beak Owl, but as long as he's not putting damage into it.
Well, he's playing
really
2
the issue.
owls, obviously, so
Yeah.
he can spend 1.
Owl's not too terribly good in this matchup either. I mean, there's not really Sludge Belchers in here. It's like
Sometimes there are. I mean,
sometimes there are, but like Edwin Van Cleef's not really a big worry.
Well,
Stuff
it
like
is. Like, we've seen big Edwin Van Cleef in one game where I think Tides of Time was playing versus Strifecrow and he played a 10-10 on turn 4.
It can happen. It definitely is a threat, but like in a position like this, you just don't want the 1-1s to get out of control. But at the same time, if he Iron Beaks owls here, it really tells Firebat he doesn't have an Unleash the Hounds. Is that information any valuable to Firebat?
I don't think it's that valuable, but still, he is. I like Hero Power here, by the way, because you know that there is some AoE coming. And I said it many times, but I'm going to repeat it. Hero Power is really important in this matchup. And being a face hunter, it's like granting you a card. Yeah, it's a clock, and you save the card. All right, there's a Deadly Poison, and the board will be cleared, I believe.
This is again, one of the turns that's sort of rebuilding into this. Because going into the next turn, he's got a fresh dagger, and he's going to have a Deadly Poison to trigger this Tinker Sharpsword Oil, and suddenly we got a race in our hands.
And there is a Deadly Poison and yeah. Oh,
yeah,
man,
that's not a very good draw right now either. The Haunted
How much
Creeper.
damage is it, by the way? That's 6, 8 plus 4. That's 12 points of damage.
It's 9 next turn is what it is. Isn't it? Because it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, it's 12 next turn.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I mean, this is, Airbrushed doesn't really know it yet, but he's on a 2-turn clock, and he doesn't have a way to answer this Violet Teacher right now.
And this only shows like the route that Firebat took with deck in turn 1 and being really aggressive, dealing the damage, using the Flurry to clear the board and deal damage at the same time. That's why Blade Flurry is so powerful. Like, you clear the board and you deal damage to face.
One of the reasons I think Blade Flurry is so powerful is because there just isn't a really good way to play around.
Yeah.
It's like one of the few cards where there's counterplay available, but the counterplay is just so narrow that your best counterplay is just playing a deck that's strong against Rogue.
So how much damage can Airbrush deal? Like, I think
it's not 14 next turn. It's not even close.
Firebat is going for it.
Yeah, I think this was...
It's so funny because the silence on Violet Teacher is actually helping him now. There's no RNG with the tokens, so he knows that he can use it.
It's very, very strange that it worked out that way.
Well, with the weapon, I don't think there is a way to stop him, so this is it.
Yeah, that's game.
Like, even if you clear a Violet Teacher, Firebat still has the weapon.
7, yeah, you can only deal 9 damage. If he'd have drawn Kill Command here, was that enough? 4, 5, 6, 7 plus 5? No. He's still 2 off, even with a Kill Command. There was actually no draw in the deck that would have killed Firebat this turn.
You're facing the Face Bat. How do you defend against the Face Bat?
It just comes flying into your face. Like the RDU knife.
Yeah,
you can't
All right, so
this is without an anti-Keelbot or an Earthring Farseer too. It's just pure aggression.
yeah, that's what he did. Like with the anti-Keelbot and Sludge Belchers, you play a different game, and here with having deckhands and well, the only difference was actually this deckhand, because like normally the rest of the cards was standard cards that Firebat got. He didn't get the coin. He had to like hardcast SI7 without doing anything, and everything worked out.
The deckhand damage is actually really relevant too.
Yeah.
It's so funny seeing it because he's got a 6-point dagger right now.
Deckhand dealt 4 points of damage, was it? Or
yeah,
was
dealt 4 points because he got attacked by a Glaivezuka. Yeah, it's gonna do it. Airbrushed. I mean, you can just see him too. He's like, did I really just lose this game? I was in such good shape.
And that's such a good matchup as well.
Yeah.
Well played.
So Firebat, able to take a matchup that I would consider pretty favorable for Hunter in this spot, and suddenly he's got a 2-1 lead now.
I'm sure he had a lot of practice against face hunters. On ladder, you play against a lot of face hunters, and he is a rogue player. Like, he loves his rogue. He played so many games of rogue. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like at this point he can basically meet Valera on the street and be like, "Oh hey, let's hang out." So, they have this intimate relationship.
People see him when he's like at Best Buy picking up a headset, and they're like, "Hey, you're that rogue player, Firebat." He's like, "Yeah, that's me."
And by the way, I'm a world champion and a Gfinity champion and top 8 dream hacks, stuff like that. But yeah, like he's the last deck that he has to win a game with is Warlock. That's his Zoo deck.
He's also got 2 games to do it. Now, Cowley said, again, he said that Warlock is going to typically be at a disadvantage versus Hunter, and I actually disagree a little bit, but So much of it depends on the builds here, too.
Yeah, on the builds and on the draw. Well, there is Explosive Trap, there is Unleash the Hounds. Airbrushed needs to get those cards. He needs Mad Scientist. He needs that good explosive trap, because sometimes, even if the board is great, there is this Defender of Argus that's escaping the explosive trap range, and Firebat being the face bat as well. He's just going to push, and even if the explosive trap is killing a couple of tokens, something may survive. So it will be a really interesting match. Also versus Mech Mage, if Airbrushed goes with his Mech Mage, the early trades will define the game. I think Airbrushed still has a chance, but Firebat is heavily favored.
Yeah, with 2 games to go, I mean, you definitely, I think, have an advantage in your pocket as far as that's concerned. Sea Giant also is a really interesting card that's in this Warlock deck from Firebat, and I'm curious how much leverage that will give him against something like Hunter.
I think it gives him a lot of leverage against the Mech Mage, because Mech Mage doesn't have many ways to deal with the big minions. You only have Fireballs. You don't have the Frostbolts. But guys, this is an amazing match. Don't go anywhere. Right now, we're going to jump in a short break, and then we'll be back after that.
Welcome back to the Gfinity Hearthstone Spring Masters 2. Firebat is up 2 games to 1 over Airbrushed right now. He needs 1 more win with his Warlock. But as he arrived here in London, we actually caught up with Firebat. We have a short little video for you guys to watch. Hear what he had to say about this event.
My name is Firebat. I'm from Detroit City, Michigan. And now I play for Team Archon, and I live at their team house. I came up with the name Firebat because in the StarCraft Pro scene, there was a player called Firebat Hero, and I really liked him, and I thought he was a really cool player. He's most famous for one where he won a match, not even like the full tournament, and then just like ripped off all of his clothes and ran into the ocean. Middle of a tournament. Before I became a professional gamer, my life, like every day, I was a student. I went to online university and I had a day job and I worked all day. And then I found time to just game at night, and it was like my escape, my like passion, just to get away from everything. So I just played a bunch of games. After BlizzCon, I was able to quit my day job and I moved into the Archon team house. So now I get to hang out with all of my teammates every day. We just play Hearthstone all day. I can stream, I can go to tournaments, and I can make enough money to get by doing that. And it's really awesome just being able to embrace esports as not only a job, but as like a way of living. It's really cool.
All right, guys, so now we know more about Firebat. He is an amazing guy, actually. Like, I was hanging out with him many times, and like even before BlizzCon, you know, he is like really dedicated to playing. There was this area where people could play, and Firebat was the only guy play testing for the tournament. So he plays a lot. He's really dedicated in playing, and it shows results.
Yeah, I mean, you take your job seriously, just like you should. That's the way professionals work. They have to take that stuff seriously, and that's, I mean, it's very reflected in his Hearthstone resume so far.
All right, so Firebat is down to his Warlock. He needs to win with it at least 1 game versus Airbrushed's Mage and Hunter. And, well, Firebat, when I'm thinking Firebat, I'm thinking aggro decks. Like, he was playing Zoo a lot before, and now we can see the starting hand, the Reynad opening, double Doomguard.
This seems to be something that's actually pretty common for Firebat so far, is that his opening hands with Zoo have just not been very good. Like, yesterday we actually saw him, he had to power overwhelming a 1/1 token to kill a 2/2 zombie chow to protect his 3/2 flame imp.
And it worked.
Yeah, that was the difference in him winning and losing the game, was the amount of damage he actually got out of the flame imp. This is a much better starting hand for him. Ironbeak Owl is actually not terrible in this matchup either, by the way, for the Warlock player, because stuff like Mad Scientist and Haunted Creeper can be extremely annoying for you to deal with in terms of combat. And Ironbeak Owl not only gives you a threat on the board, but it gives you a way to start fighting against that. And look at this. This is even one of the best pickups in the deck right now, is this Voidwalker.
Yeah, and looking at Airbrushed's hand, this is one of the most terrible hands I've seen. Like, you don't want to play Arcane Golem early, even though against the Zoo you possibly can. But then he has nothing. Leopard Gnome.
Oh, on turn 2.
Late to the party.
If he had Leopard Gnome on turn 1 and he Glaive Zuka this turn, I mean, he'd have an extremely good chance to win this game.
That would be a different game. A totally different game.
Just that 1 extra mana being able to be spent. But now he's in a position like this. Look, he's going to have to Ironbeak Owl straight away, so that way he can actually even utilize the Glaive Zuka. This is looking like...
This is so painful for Airbrushed.
work because there's Iron Begal in here. He pretty much needs to draw something like Explosive Trap to really recover this board.
Yeah, and Firebat is just extending the board, having a great opening. Flame and Void Walker into Haunted Creeper. He has that Implosion as well. He even has the Silence. So
yeah, that Haunted Creeper is very, very likely to get silenced if it hits the board.
yeah, even though it's an important card, and it's a card that can work versus Zoo because you will be able to fight back a bit. But right here, well, I think Glaive Zuka is a must. You just need to get those minions out of the board. And normally, if you have the advantage as a hunter, you are the one attacking. Your hero power is great because it deals damage, and Warlock's hero power deals damage to Warlock as well. So there's so many sources dealing damage to Warlock that the Warlock can be overpowered. But with this start, Hunter has to be defensive.
Exactly. He doesn't have time to invest into his hero power. So while Firebat's going to be taking damage from using his hero power, it's still so important because it allows him to continually leverage his board position.
Oh man, even with the Leopard Imps, this is looking rough for Airbrushed. And I want to mention again that this is elimination match, single elimination. If Firebat wins with his Warlock deck, then Firebat advances the top 4 and Airbrushed is eliminated from the tournament.
Yeah, initially I would have gone with this Iron Beak Owl here, but Direwolf Alpha is going to put 2 extra damage in this turn, and it's going to also put 2 extra damage on the board. So this is, this is a pretty significant match. Maybe he's going to go with the Iron Beak Owl. Something like Glaive Zuka, I think, is really weighing on his mind right now. Or just even something like Abusive Sergeant, being able to trade into this stuff efficiently and then also have threats afterwards.
Would you trade, by the way? Like your Iron Beak Owl, silence and trade your...
Yeah. Well, he can't really trade too terribly efficiently. I think he's just got to push for damage. I mean,
right now it's all obvious damage because he went with the Wolf, but with Iron Beak Owl, if you kill the Haunted Creeper, you still retain the board, and then you might go with the Implosion next turn. You still have to mind the Explosive Trap and Unleash the Hounds. But right now, those cards are not in Airbrushed hands.
I think the real thought behind Heartless Iron Beak Owl is how likely am I to lose if my opponent gets a Mad Scientist? And that's really, it feels like one of the main ways that Airbrushed is going to recover right now. So I think I would just tend to hold on to the Iron Beak Owl simply because like the Haunted Creeper is not actually directly killing anything this turn without a buff. And even when it gets buffed,
it's killing.
You still have plenty of...
Yeah,
he still has got plenty of stuff afterwards to make sure he can keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, for now, this is something that is putting Airbrushed a bit back to the game because he was able to clear the board almost. He has that weapon, he has 2 small minions, and even though he is at 19,
it's 100% going to be Implosion here.
Yeah, it is an Implosion turn.
Rolls a 3.
Well, Airbrushed needs that Explosive Trap.
Not surprised by the trade there. 1 damage. It's a pretty favorable trade for Firebat. And that's when you should typically be doing that. Hoffer gets rolled, but that's actually not too good right now. He does put some damage out, which is something that I think he really needs to be doing. But
Hoffer, I think, is important. Like normally you would think it's Misha maybe to stop the onslaught here, but then Hoffer was able to put the strategy ahead. So Firebat dropping down to 15, and there is this kill command. There is this Arcane Golem. Right now it's a race. It's an all-in strategy. If there is that...
Yeah, I think actually you're right. I think that Hoffer is actually kind of a blessing in hindsight.
6 damage, double kill command. Can Firebat win next turn? If not, that game is over. Right now we see, what, 8 damage to face, and then there is 7 remaining. If there is a Beast draw...
Well, he's got to have a 1-mana Beast to do that. This deck is actually running a 1-mana
He'll have 7, so a Haunted Creeper will do it as well. Like next turn. Like this turn you deal 8.
Oh, this is only 9 damage. Oh, he's going to 7.
Yeah, he's going to 7. So
oh yeah, enough. You're right.
Just a Haunted Creeper draw, and it's and that's it.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for Firebat.
That's so close. But he needs to trade here.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to life tap.
Well, if he trades, it might actually give enough time for Airbrushed to win.
At least the Hounds would work here too now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Man, the draw.
This is so important right now. Unleash the Hounds! That is a huge draw!
Oh man.
Airbrushed, wow. I mean, this was down to the wire.
This is the Hearthstone I love. Like, really on the brink of elimination. He comes back with the dogs, unleashes the Hounds. Ties this series versus Firebat 2-2. Oh man, the dogs. The dogs.
This is, who let him out? It's really...
That was Airbrushed.
Airbrushed let him out, yeah. That game. Wow, I mean that was some really rough stuff. What else could he have drawn there actually at the end to win the game? Arcane Golem would have been enough.
All right, so Haunted Creeper was enough because that's a beast. You play it and that's 7 damage with.
Yeah, Quick Shot would have been enough because he can quick shot hero power, kill command.
8, yes. Yeah. Unleash the Hounds was enough. Was there anything else?
I think that's about it. Yeah, Arcane Golem, Haunted Creeper, Quick Shot.
That was still a lot of outs, actually.
I mean, still a pretty good amount.
What about Explosive Trap? Was that an out? Because then you clear the board and you're not dead to
yeah,
Doomguard.
so you can put him at 2 with the Explosive Trap out. Yeah, so Explosive Trap's an out as well.
Yeah, and you're not dying. Yeah, so it's
No,
pretty.
he can put him at 2 with an Explosive Trap.
And then you
down,
finish
which
with-
is effectively dead.
So
So yeah,
Explosive Trap, you deal 5. Yes,
Kill
yeah,
commands,
you're right.
yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of outs there.
Oh,
2 for
man.
Airbrush too. So
That was a
I'd
pretty
like to see
sick
the
game.
exact. Yeah, I'd have to go back and do the exact math to see what percent chance he was. But that's actually a very calculable one, which are always the ones I like to see.
That's the magic of Face Hunter.
Yeah, we came
All the
5.
cards support your strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I figured this one's going to be a close one. Both of these guys have some good matchups on both sides of it, but they also have some really bad matchups on both sides of it as well. And it's coming down to this last game, Warlock versus Mage, and I would venture to say that this is probably the closest. of all
Might be the
matches.
closest. Can Airbrushed 3-0 Firebat Warlock, or can Firebat finally win the game and win the match and advance to the top 4?
It was a strong opening he had that last game too.
For Firebat.
Yeah, I think he had a pretty strong open.
Yeah, he had. The Airbrushed had a really weird and bad opening, but then they actually utilized the power of the Face Hunter. Right now, Airbrushed has a pretty good hand, like a turn 1 Mech Warper into turn 2 Spider Tank. And, well, the Mech Warper is actually...
Abusive Sergeant is definitely one of the best ones you can draw here.
There's the Cogmaster. And that's the thing. That's exactly what I was talking about. But with Zoo has the power to actually fight the board in the very beginning. Firebat got the exact cards he needed. With Voidwalker being able to deal with a Mech Warper or a Snow Chugger being played early. But then, if you play... Mad Scientist is not that great in this matchup because the mirror entity giving you an Abusive Surgeon or Argent Squire is not that great, but it is okay. Like, you are getting 1 more minion to be able to fight the board battle.
Yeah, I can actually kind of see both of these plays here.
Mad Scientist or Mech Warper?
I actually, I really kind of like Cogmaster too, because if you play Cogmaster, your opponent is still like, if they have Abusive Sergeant, they're still going to kill your Cogmaster. I think with that, and then he can just follow that up with either the Mech Warper or the Mad Scientist afterwards. I think this is actually, I would consider this one the worst of his 3 options because it doesn't directly threaten the Haunted Creeper in this position. Oh my gosh, that's a good one too.
Yep, that's a wolf. This means that Abusive Surgeon is getting a mirror entity.
I'm really surprised by the trade here too. Like, I'm so surprised by that.
It's missing the damage.
I guess he doesn't want to get frostbolted. That's why he's trading.
Yeah, with the Frostbolt, the Mad Scientist is going to trade and the board is getting cleared, so I think I was right. And also, I agree with the Mad Scientist there, because...
Wow, he's just going to ping.
You want to filter your deck from Mirror Entity. You don't want ever to join Mirror Entity in this matchup. Well, I guess Abusive Sergeant into Haunted Creeper.
I don't know. I think I like playing the Haunted Creeper into the Mirror SD instead.
Even the spiders?
Yeah, I think so.
Seriously?
The spiders aren't really threatening anything here. You have a Defender of Argus lined up next turn.
The problem with the spiders is that they might threaten something later, and
If
then
you
you're
play the
getting a
Abusive
spider.
Sergeant, you're giving your opponent a direct challenge on your Direwolf Alpha. That's the reason I don't like it.
Yeah, well, this turn it will look worse, but overall, I think giving him the spiders will not work for you that well, because the spiders are essentially much more damage. And right now, it's not a race. It's not like Firebat is going to, you know, just raise Mech Mage. It's all about the board, and Haunted Creeper is better on board than Abusive Surgeon.
Well, I agree and I disagree with you. I mean, obviously, right now it's not initiated 100% full on race, but he's got 2 cards up in his hand, and his cards are Power Overwhelming and Defender of Argus. So he has to look to make up the damage somewhere. And maybe long term, giving him a 100 Creeper actually is way worse.
So you would advise to unleash his inner Facebat and cheers the.
That's the spot I like to be in the most.
Getting more face cards. That's actually really interesting here. All right, I think Power Overwhelming, and you need to kill the Spider Tank. You definitely need to.
I don't know if I Power Overwhelming with it. I think I'd use the Abusive Sergeant on my 2-1.
Then you tap first.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I like Abusive Surgeon more.
Yeah, I think so also. Yeah, I mean, you have to keep mechs off the board if you're going to be having 2 1s and 1 1s out. Oh gosh, these are such ugly draws.
R&B gets pretty meh. Nothing really to silence. Well, he still has those buffs. He will be able to use Defender Argus.
That's a pretty darn good one.
And that's the thing, like, Firebat is just keeping the board under control. Just dismantling the strategies. There is a Spider Tank Mech Warper. But Can Firebat kill both of them easily?
Not easily, but he can definitely kill both of them.
I like Power Overwhelming into Hunter Creeper into one and then playing Defender.
I don't like that. I think you have to keep life tapping at this point. Like once you've committed to grinding your opponent out, you have to actually grind them out.
But you want to deny the mech, the Blast Mage. And there are no mechs for Airbrushed in his hand right now. This is a very interesting turn. And that's why Zoo is a complicated deck,
really
because you have so many choices.
I mean, this might be one of those turns where he feels like he can forego the hero power, but gosh, it's so tough.
I can just feel the chat flaming me right now. But for the Zoo, right now, you actually have a lot of choices. You have different plays. You can tap, you can play the power, you can do a lot of stuff.
If you're going to play Defender Vargas, I think you do play it with the Ardent Squire. I mean, that's part of the grind value that you need, is you need your opponent to be investing mana into it to disrupt them, and then also having a body that your opponent has to attack that's not as efficient as the rest of them. Yeah, like look at how awkward of a turn this is for Airbrushed. And I think at this point, Firebat has conceded that he can't really play around a Goblin Blast Mage efficiently anymore. But Goblin Blast Mage isn't even like the best play ever into a board like this. I mean, there's still some options that aren't very good.
Oh, come on. It's 4 damage.
There are some outcomes that aren't very good with this Goblin Blast Mage. Like, imagine 4 to his face, Nibsh.
I can imagine that. It happened to me actually a couple of times because I've played a ton of Mech Mage games. And like I leave one minion with 1 health, and then all 4 hits go to face. So it happened to me many times.
Wow, well 2 of them went to face right there. And that's I mean, this is basically one of his disaster results.
Yeah, this board can actually clear everything, sans the Cogmaster.
The problem with Firebat's board right now is that his hand isn't very good to back it up. But that can change pretty quickly. So
Urban Egg is a blank for now, but might tend to be useful later. But then again, if Firebat clears this board,
he's got a life tap first, right?
Do you power the 1/1 to kill 5/4?
So I mean, these are like sort of the obvious traits to me. And then, wow, he's actually going to power Overwhelming straight away. I wonder why he's not. Oh, he's going to silence his. That's actually really clever. So he keeps a 2 on the board. So now he's basically overloaded Airbrushed hero power. So he's going to have 1 health minion stay on the board no matter what. The problem with this is that it once again didn't get a life tap in this turn, and Airbrushed again happens to have a card that's very bad for him with the Annoyatron.
Yeah, exactly. Annoyatron is the MVP right now. On turn 6, it's just contesting the whole board.
Yeah, I mean, having to miss 2 hero powers is definitely not something you're satisfied with when you're fighting this kind of battle.
You don't even hero power now. With Annoyatron, you're happy to contest this board as it is. Just build up.
I'm a little surprised he's not hero powering, honestly.
Something needs tinkering.
Well, you want to put a body on the board. This is all about the board still.
What are some strong draws right now? Oh, that's an okay one. That's a pretty huge draw right now.
That is a very huge draw.
Oh my gosh. I mean, wow,
oh,
there's another great one too.
Implosion will be great.
This match just got really crazy.
Airbrush needs Dr. Boom. Like, if he gets a small mech.
Look at that. He's even gonna trade down the board entirely here. And what this does is this makes something like Fireball so much less efficient versus Doomguard. But what option does Airbrush really have here? Is he gonna take 5?
Shredder's nice. Well, this is the thing why Zoo is winning this matchup, because you just grind the mech mage down. Even though Airbrush was able to get some synergies with the mechs, he was able to use the Blast Mage, he was able to play the 4/4 Technician. Still, Firebat is the one with minions on the board. Firebat has removal.
When you get to this spot, it's really a matter of how well Warlock hero power plays against all of the other hero powers. Like if you go 1 for 1 and get grinded out, the Warlock hero power wins the game.
Yeah, that's a very good hero power. And it's not like Airbrush will be able to just kill Firebat from 284 with fireballs. Unless he gets...
well, we're gonna grab the other feed for you here real quick.
Oh, we can see still the hand. So Firebat is getting Defender of Argus here.
Top decking and wrecking. Wow, and he esports rolls this.
And this is not unstable ghoul, so...
Gosh,
Firebat
look at this
game.
damage. I mean, this is... Airbrushed has been all but done on this one. Unless he has something like Flame Strike in here.
You don't play Flame Strike in this kind of deck.
Well, I mean, it's happened before. I mean, what else is he going to draw to really pull this out?
That's not the Flame Strike, and this is what Make Mage is normally drawing at those turns. Like, you get the Fireball, you get the Frostball, you got them to face, and you win. But then Firebat actually stayed at 23 points of health.
You have to have a minion advantage to make that work.
So right now, he might be forced to just Frostbolt the Doomguard, use the hero power, and then, yeah, what then? There is this Nerubinag just waiting.
4 imps is so brutal. Look at him too. Every single one of those imps, I just want to slap them.
The imps?
Yeah, just look at the way they're looking at you, man.
They're that annoying imps.
They're giving you that eye, and you're like, oh, I've had enough of it. All right, you're grounded.
That's why I played Whirlwind in my Warrior. Fireball the Doomguard. Then do you attack it to the 1/3, ping it, and then Frostbolt it? But then you're fighting for the board, and this is not how Mech Mage should be played. Oh man, this is so tough.
It's actually, oh my gosh.
Firebat is drawing 2 cards a turn.
Oh my gosh, is this real life?
He won't have enough space on board, but
no, you can trade 2 of the imps in and then implosion. I think that's totally
how many
fine.
minions is there? 4. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
2 imps.
I guess he's thinking, like, is it better to just save the implosion? Like, that's definitely a possibility.
He can deal 4 points of damage this turn if he uses.
Maybe he only just needs 2 imps. I mean, this is. Yeah, I mean, I guess you get the same amount of damage basically. Either way.
He got a 2, which is perfect for him.
Yep.
All right, so Firebat
yeah,
has
this
that
is
board.
looking really bad for Airbrushed. I don't know what he needs. He has no mechs to go with his Goblin Blast Mage.
This is tough.
This is
tough.
So
this is tough for Airbrushed.
I mean, where does he go? Okay, so let's say he Frostbolts the Knife Juggler. Let's say he draws the mech next turn. Say he gets perfect rolls on the Goblin Blast Mage. Is he in the game then?
I'm just thinking about a new TV show starring Firebat, which will be called Imp Up My Board.
What?
So Firebat like assessing boards and well, this board needs more imps. Let's imp up this board.
Just go ahead and roll 4 more. Imp up.
Yep.
I thought you were saying imp pop, and I was like,
oh,
I don't. It sounds like a weird flavored soda.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like a soda. Now we're doing.
Well, I mean, take your pick.
You can play whatever at this point.
What a weird hand. I feel like a 12-year-old built this zoo deck right now. Just giant midget in his hand at the end of the game.
All right, so Firebat is going to take the series versus Airbrushed and going to advance to the top 4. Can Firebat win the whole tournament again, or is he going to get stopped by another opponent? Airbrushed. Well, he had a good run. I mean, top 8, and then this tournament he's getting some World Championships points. How many points? Is
he gets 5 for a top 8, which isn't a ton of points, but it's better than 0. You need at least 2 points to play in the last chance qualifier, so he's got that locked up. I don't know exactly where he stands right now, but I really liked seeing stuff from Airbrushed this tournament so far. I think he played really well. I think his lists are built really well. I really like his lineup. It's just unfortunate that he came out on the wrong side of the coin this tournament. It was such a close match too. I mean, it really came down to this last game being whether or not he could get grinded out of the game or not. And at the end of the day, it was just implosion being worth so much.
Oh,
and the timely Doomguard draw, it's just everything went wrong for him. In Game 5 here, but yeah, good stuff for him. And Firebat, of course, going to top 4. He's locked up $1,250 for himself, and still got a couple more matches to go for maybe 50 World Championship points, which is a lot of points.
I want to see more of Firebat playing that Zoo deck. It's like you can really learn a lot for that plays, and it's not about like just the draws. It's all about like approaching the matchups, when to go into aggression, when to go into minion trading. And this is a very interesting thing to watch. Like I faced Firebat one time, Zoo versus Zoo, and I felt like I had a lot of advantage, and he crushed me in the end. So I was like, I guess I'm going to rewatch this and learn. That was
always a good way to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
All right. So for now, Airbrushed is going to rewatch the games, I guess, and analyze what Firebat did and what he did. But I think that our analysts are ready. So Frodan, take it over.
All right, well, that wraps up our first quarterfinals. Firebat advances 3-2 in a pretty back-and-forth series. He started off with a Warrior win over Zoo, which surprised us because we're talking about how good Zoo is nowadays against classes like Warrior. And then Firebat was able to strike back, taking out the Hunter twice. So talk to me about some of the things that, what was the main story here behind the series for you, Lothar?
Well, the first match between the Warrior and the Zoo, right? That was a pretty unfortunate draw for Firebat. So this series didn't start at all as he wanted. And the fact that Airbrushed also played the Unstable Ghoul in the Warrior was really important in this matchup in particular.
Yeah, that's right. Stopping all those imps or all those one health minions from being able to get past that line. And those things, they don't feel like initially when you play with them have that big of a difference, but that one damage does start getting that repetitive damage counter in.
It's not even that, but you play around Sea Giants too.
That's right, true. If they're
you can just sever the board so much then that the giant is just becoming a useless card.
What about you, Kaldi? Like, moving on from the rest of the game, we had Freeze Mage versus Hunter, and then the Rogue was able to beat the Hunter. Finally, the Hunter got a win, but it took a while to get there.
I think the Freeze Mage versus Hunter was the crucial match. As the Freeze Mage got a win, they couldn't match up against the Warrior, so that
the Warrior was already off then.
Yeah, exactly.
He won.
And it was a bit rough, especially with the Warrior against Su, as you can stay even with the Warrior in the early game, but in the early mid game you always fall behind as the Warrior, and it comes down to can you stabilize. And if you can stabilize once, you usually have the win in the matchup. So that really swung there after the early game.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, is there a moment that you were talking about specifics? I think we have. Something that we pulled up from a specific moment in the series.
Yeah, it was Hunter versus Su actually, and the Hunter had a very aggressive hand, a lot of burst, but that obviously doesn't work well in the early game as you need sticky minions. So there was a defining moment. Airbrushed was behind the entire game until he got that Huffer, and that really just turned the whole game around because it put Firebat in that awkward health total of 15. Which is definitely doable with a hand like Arcane Golem, Kill Command, and Abusive Sergeant there. So getting that Huffer there was the swing turn, I'd say, in that game.
Yeah, that was really, really important, but also it didn't... that was the damage that he needed to for the win, but he still needed the top deck to squeeze that last points of damage. And
yeah, exactly.
His outs were kind of limited, because on turn 7, what we'll see in a few seconds, after the Arcane Golem with the Abusive Sergeant play, he will be at 7 mana, and his only cards will be to kill commands. So he would have to deal 7 points of damage, and he was still lacking that 1 point that has to be top decked.
Yeah, the Doomguard was a great follow-up there after the Huffer in that game. But how it was looking by game turn 1, 2, and 3, and 4, we were counting Airbrushed totally out of the game because he had the Arcane Golem, which you can't play, the kill command you can't play early on. He was, facing up against, I think it was turn 1, a Voidwalker and Flame Imp, which is the ideal hand, I suppose, for the Su. So it turned from being way behind until being like slightly even, maybe slightly ahead even for Airbrushed, and he did end up taking that game even. So it put him back into the series after that loss against the Freeze Mates.
Yeah, pretty nail biting coming down to the final turns there, and even so, like we thought the beginning of the game, maybe looking really bad for Firebat of that Mech Mage versus Zoo at the final closing, but he did manage to pull it through. Was it solely the Blast Mage, or was there other things that were?
I think the Doomguard pushed the game towards
the draw on turn 5.
Yeah, it was like insane. Mm-hmm. The value against Doomguard's value against decks like Mech Mage is really enormous because you can trade for a minion and then you pull off a second spell from the Mech Mage hand. So it's a 2-1, 3-1 trade, and you basically you're not caring about your discard anyway.
Yeah.
The thing about the matchup Su against Mech Mage, I had that yesterday as well, is that in the early game you always fall slightly behind as the Mech Mage, but you can get ahead in the early mid game with the Mech Warpers and get that really rolling. And you have to go face a lot after that and kind of finish off with fireballs. And we had Firebat, he got ahead in the early game and kind of stayed even, which is what he needed. And there wasn't any damage coming to his face, so by turn 8 or 9 when that Fireball and Frostbolt showed up, it had to be just use removal, and Fireball, there's not a lot of target for it in the Su deck, I'd say. So
when you think about Zoo against Mech Mage, the fact is that Zoo has more value minions, and they always draw 2 cards each turn, like almost always. So they just outvalue the Mech Mage, and the only thing that the comeback mechanism for Mech Mage is Blast Mage.
Yeah, Blast Mage, or when he went for Tinkertown, maybe get the coolant to freeze Doomguard. Like that was his only chance really to seize back tempo. Otherwise, if he just played Fireball, his opponent will be playing 2 minions per turn, and then Noyotron gets really weak.
Unless you play Flame Strike. But
Unless
no
you
one
play
is taking
Flame
that.
Strike, magically decided to just whip it out of nowhere.
I think the thing to note is that you have more big targets as Su, but the big targets in Mechmates are so much bigger than the targets in Su. We have the Antonidas and Dr. Boom, and neither of them showed up, so
Right, that's
if you
true.
get neither of them, you really start struggling in the late game.
Well, they both have 7 HP points.
Yeah.
Like the same as Doomguard. It's kind
Right,
of silly,
so
right?
Doomguard, but you can get it out that much quicker. just
Yeah,
with
and
higher
then with the
impact
Mechmates, you can't leave either of them alive if you're facing them as Su, so they're really threatening there and can close out the game on their own, it seems.
Well, it depends with the Dr. Boom, because if you can play Voidwalkers and Defend of Argus, you can ignore the War Golem, right? But you can't ignore Antonidas if there's like 2 cards in your opponent's hand.
Yeah, not especially if your opponent's pushing the damage early like you mentioned it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that pretty much wraps up our first series. Firebat advances to play the winner of Reynad versus LB Dutch Boy. He's doing it. He's guaranteed at least 1250, as well as a chunk of World Championship points, but Firebat eliminates Airbrushed and gets into the top 4, so consistency once again being demonstrated by the Archon player.
He has to win 2 more matches to become the 2nd champion Gfinity Spring Master, and this would be insane. Like when there are 4 tournaments when it comes to Gfinity, so if he manages to win 50% of that, at least,
right.
maybe he will win the second one again. And after this one, this will be like, I don't know if that's even possible, but it will be insane.
Guess they've got to invite him back then, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe, and then maybe Firebat next time can let someone else win. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have the next quarterfinal of the day.